Spurs blaze Millwall 6-0 in their final FA Cup tie at White Hart Lane, which sees Spurs off to Wembley again, but this time for an FA Cup semi-final. We look back on that win and preview Southampton in this week's e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms via our Twitter, which is at @e_Spurs, and you can catch us on Instagram. We're also on Facebook, Pinterest and Tumblr, and for all the links you can head to our website, which is e-spurs.com. I'm pleased to announce we've got a couple of new guests joining us tonight as we look back on a great win in the FA Cup over Millwall. We preview what could be for the semi-finals. We're looking again at the weekend's fixture coming up against Southampton. Let's kick off with the show. I'm pleased to say we've got Jason back with us as always. Jace, how are you?
All well and good, mate. All well and good.
Good to have you back. Ian, we've got you back as always. How are you?
Very well, Rick. Welcome to the two new lads, and happy birthday to Jason for last weekend.
Yes, echo those thoughts. Happy birthday, Jace. Like I say, it's been a pretty good week on the Spurs front. Jay, good to have you with us tonight. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks, Rick. All good, thank you.
Good, and pleasure to have you tonight. And Jay, just in case anyone in the next hour or so likes your thoughts and maybe wants to give you a follow on Twitter, do you just want to give your Twitter handle out?
Yeah, it's at JAI, I for Indigo, P72. That's JAI P72.
Lovely, and I'm pleased to announce our final guest of the evening. We've got Alan on the line. Alan, how are you?
Very good evening, everyone. I'm on top form after yesterday. Top form.
I bet you are. And Alan, just to kind of give a briefing for people that may not know who you are, do you just want to give people just an inkling out in the world of what you do?
Sure, yeah. I write the Tottenham on My Mind blog, and you can catch me on Twitter, Spurs Blogger. And I've also got a book, and you've got to get that plug in quick, People's History of Tottenham Hotspur, co-written with Martin Cloak, which is the first ever history of support and supporters that's ever been written about a British club.
There you go. And Alan, just out of interest, if anyone wants to kind of purchase that book, do you just want to give some information as to how they can do that?
Yeah, it's a proper book. It is really available at all good bookshops. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle.
And, I mean, like I say, talking about the book, I mean, the performance at the moment at White Hart Lane, we're certainly in formidable form. Let's go to you first, Jace. I mean, 6-0, what did you make of it?
Well, again, it was another game where we thought it might be a lot tighter, and yet we just blitzed the opposition. I thought, you know, when you think Millwall had only conceded, one goal in their previous 10 games, and we were getting in and behind them, really, from the second or third minute. I mean, I think we'd forced a couple of saves even by the time Kane went off, so it was a very comfortable win, but the quality of finishing on those first 3 or 4 goals was exceptional. And, you know, I know it's not the best test to say that Harry Kane's out with an injury, but it was quite nice to see him go off and score 6 goals in his absence. So, you know, let's hope we can have a continuation along those lines.
Very much so. And bringing you in, Ian, was you there on the weekend?
Yeah, I was there, mate. I was in the Paxton, as always, Paxton Lower. It was a very, very professional performance from the team. I thought that we gave Millwall lots of respect. We silenced their boisterous crowd with 6 of the best. So, yeah, it was a great, great afternoon.
Jay, what did you make of the game itself from Spurs? Happy with the performance?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, it was just a joy to be there. So I'm a Park Lane upper, so it was interesting having the Millwall fans just to my left as they encroached into our side. But some of the football was just scintillating. I think I tweeted that it was like sex, but a bit more regular for me anyway. But it was absolutely wonderful to watch. This Kane thing, I love Kane, don't get me wrong. I think he's wonderful. But I actually thought the player that was off the pitch that actually came on and changed the game was Eriksen. Because he is so underrated. He absolutely made that whole team tick. And the centre focus, Son became that centre focus. He was actually, up until his first goal, playing horrific to the point where I actually said, turn to my mate, Grant, if you're listening, hi Grant, said to him, mate, Son is shit. And just as I said that, he hit that with his left foot into the top corner. So that's how much I know about football. But he was terrible. He kept miscontrolling the ball, etc. And then the confidence lifted. You just saw the whole team. But I love Harry Winks as well. Just watching that young boy play. Just the energy, the drive, every single player bombing forward, filling gaps. Vertonghen, it's just majestic. It's just the most amazing team I've ever seen. I've been watching the team since 1978, and this is just a great team. Yeah. It's not about Harry Kane. It's not about Eriksen. It's not about anyone, not one player. They've all been out this season. What other team could have half their team out for most of the season? The best left back in the world was not even there, and we don't even miss him. So it's pretty incredible. Maybe I'm eulogising a bit. Maybe it was only Millwall, but this has just been going on and on and on. And we've been going to White Hart Lane all season. We ain't seen us lose. I've never, ever experienced that before.
Yeah, no, it is a phenomenal run we're on at the moment at White Hart Lane. And bringing you in, Alan, I mean, fans at the moment, they're having, the time of their lives at White Hart Lane. We just don't want this time to come to an end in terms of leaving there. Is it all about the crowd for you? What do you put that down to?
Like Jay, I'm overjoyed. I go back a bit further than him, 67. I've been going regularly since 67 and still got my seat on the shelf, which is about 10 yards from where I used to stand, boy and man. This is as good a team as I've ever seen. I've seen better individual players, and I've seen some outstanding performances, but this is a real team, and we should be lapping it up. This is joyful, exuberant, attacking football played by players who are totally committed to the club. And I just wonder how many other Premier League teams could say that all of their players were so committed to the club. And I think that this is the key thing, almost a unique thing at Tottenham at the moment, which is how close the club, the players and the fans are. A few years ago, I think the club and the fans were drifting apart. I think we were feeling alienated. There were high prices. We were customers and consumers. We weren't fans. They weren't taking any notice, really, of what we were saying. They just expected us to turn up, which we did because we're loyal. That history of loyalty goes right back to the 1880s when the club first formed. And we're not going to change now. The fans have responded to the all-out effort from the players. The players have responded to the fans. At the end of the game, where the players just drift around, do an impromptu, not a lap of honour, but they don't want to go off the pitch. Yep. They want to stay and listen to the fans and take what the fans are giving to them. And it's a fantastic time to be a Spurs fan.
And I have to say as well, at the end of the game, Pochettino, he waited on the touchline and he congratulated every single Tottenham player that came off. And it just shows you the collective bond at the moment. It is a fantastic time to be a Spurs fan, and we mustn't forget this at the moment. Bringing it back to you, Jay, Heung-min Son. Now, if anyone, as a player, would be one of the most frustrating Spurs players, it's surely this guy, because he looks like he's about to go into a run of form, then he hits a dip, and then he can create something out of nothing. I mean, what do you make of him as a footballer? Because there's talent in there, isn't it? It's just trying to get it out of him.
Well, we all know that Sonny's incredibly inconsistent, but what I like about him is he brings a little bit of pace to our team. He likes to take people on, doesn't he? We haven't got too many people that really go past in a one-on-one situation, so to see him doing that is something that I like to see. And, I don't mind if he doesn't always go past the bloke. I don't mind some of the inconsistency. What I don't want to see him do is take the safe option. So I want to see him front up defenders and try a few tricks, because it's something that isn't in the side. And yesterday, he was right. He did have a very, very strange start to the game. He had I think they botched a clearance, and you thought, well, he can lob that one straight back in there, and he couldn't get the ball under control. And even for his goal, it was a terrible bit of his first touch, and in fact, the second touch of that was poor. And you thought, come on, sort your feet out. But he scored some fantastic goals over the course of the 2 years he's been at Tottenham, and I think that gives him 16 goals for the season. So, when we keep hearing about our backup options and we haven't got anyone that can change things, there's a bloke who's got 16 or 14 goals, isn't it? 14 goals he's got this season. So he's very much, I think, probably as our 12th, 13th player. Probably him and Winks are the first two off the bench, aren't they, that you look at in the squad, and you say their numbers 12 and 13. And, I think it makes him the top scorer in the FA Cup this season as well. Yep. So he's certainly played his part in the season that we're having, and it looks like he'll have a bigger part to play over the course of the next probably 3 or 4 weeks.
Jason, is it fair to say you think he might be underrated as a player? Because you're looking at him, you could think really outside the top six, he must probably be a regular, wouldn't he, in terms of anyone else's first team in the Premier League?
I don't know if he's underrated or he's underappreciated. I think most people in the crowd will accept. You can see the talent that's inside him. You can see what he brings to the team. The appreciation is that he doesn't perhaps do it enough, and he doesn't always do it from the start when he gets his 90-minute chances. But I don't think anyone seriously looks at him and can't see the talent in there. But, like any player, it just needs that little bit more consistency and I suppose a little bit like one or two of the others in the side, it's when he's not having an excellent game, it's what then does he bring to the side. But I like the player, as I say, he brings pace, he brings energy, he keeps going, he's always got a smile on his face, and I just like the fact that he fronts defenders up and he can go either side of them, and I think that brings him a little bit of an unpredictability for other sides as well as perhaps one or two on our own side.
Certainly agree. We're going to come to you next, Alan. I want to ask you about one man, Harry Winks. He's been played when he has played alongside Moussa Dembele. I didn't notice that Harry Winks was actually missing on Saturday. That's how good he was. What do you make of this guy?
I think he's a top quality player. I think he could go to the very top. I'm careful with what I say. I'm careful with my judgment. Too cautious, a lot of people say. I think he's got it. I like the way that he makes himself available. His control is good. He doesn't shirk a tackle and he gets wound up. I sit close enough to the pitch on the shelf. I can look right into the whites of their eyes, and he does not shirk a single tackle, even though he's very slight. And I like the way, especially, that he passes the ball forward. One or two touches, he picks out a man, and he does it so well. And the way he set up Ali's goal yesterday, where he picked up the ball in midfield, he went one way, there was nowhere to go, didn't panic, turned back, 30-yard ball out wide perfectly. The bloke plays as if he was born to run a midfield. He's top quality.
I'm quite lucky. I don't know if you know this, but my boy plays at the academy, the Elite Development Centre, and his coach is a guy called Roger. Roger has trained pretty much all of the superstars that are playing in the team from when they were kids. So Harry Kane, Andros Townsend when he was there, Ryan Mason, all the kids that have come through the whole of the development. So not your Aaron Lennons, etc., and Carl Walkers that came in later, but the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way through. And he said Harry Winks is just so special. He said he's the most talented kid that he's seen play for him, and he thinks he's going to go right to the top and be an England superstar. Yeah. He really thinks that much about him, and that includes Harry Kane. They didn't see it. I don't know, he never said this, but I don't think they ever saw that in Harry at the time. So Harry Winks has come all the way through rather than Kane.
I mean, the guy himself at the moment, what I love about Pochettino is that he seems to just be not throwing him into games. 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, give him the cup games, let him build his confidence. I mean, like I say, 71 passes, forward thinking. It's great to see. I know we don't want to big him up too much because there's so much to come from him, and we don't want to overhype him. Ian, coming on to you, another player who, ironically, I mean, Vincent Janssen, on his 30th appearance, he finally gets the goal from open play. Now, bearing in mind, we don't know how long Harry Kane is going to be out for. Just how crucial could that goal be, and is it a turning point in his Tottenham career?
Well, I think the first goal was always going to be important, but based on what you've just said and looking at the Harry Kane injury, it's his second, third, and fourth and fifth goals from open play that I'm more worried about or I'm more interested in, because at the end of the day, let's hope this has got his monkey off his back, because you look at the goal and it was an exceptionally good goal. He could have snatched it, but he did what all decent strikers should do, and he just passed it into the corner.
Like you've just said, Arian, it wasn't a finish from someone that's low on confidence. I mean, it was a real good quality finish. I mean, you wouldn't know the guy had been struggling for goals based on that finish, would you?
No, not at all. And I think that, my son had watched him, Dutch football, for a few, a year or so before he came to Tottenham, and he said, this chap's the real deal. And I just think that maybe, like a lot of the players that come from other European divisions, it takes a while. We can't go out and fork out on a Ibrahimovic who's got quality and he's going to hit the ground running. But I think that we should keep faith with Janssen, because at the end of the day, it's a learning opportunity that these players get when they come to Tottenham from another European league.
Jason, when I come to you next, another guy I want to ask you about, Kieran Trippier, his performance on Sunday. By far, again, another understated backup in the Spurs squad. What did you make of his performance?
I thought his second half was excellent. I thought his first half was actually quite poor. I thought in the first half he had 3 or 4 decent opportunities to get that quality ball in. Never produced one in that first half, and he also lost control a couple of times when he got in and behind them. But the second half, he'd obviously been watching Dele Alli in training, because he kept nutmegging the left-sided fullback for Millwall, and it was a delicious little ball over the top for Son. The weight of the ball was absolutely perfect for Son. So, whenever he's come in, with the exception, I think, that Monaco game, which, let's be fair, I thought all 11 had an awful night, didn't they, down in Monaco. But, more recently, the game at Watford and things like that, and the game at Fulham, we've seen him put those quality balls in, and we know he's got that in his locker. But certainly the second half, it was back to the Kieran Trippier that we know that's there. And you're right, he's another player that could easily go and play for almost any of the sides outside that top 6 in the Premier League.
Coming to you now, Jay. Dele Alli, 16 goals and 4 assists this season, 3 in 3 since the Wembley debacle. Player for me who just seems to be undoubtedly one of Tottenham's strongest players this season, and growing again in stature game by game.
He's a kid. And I think people need to understand he's such a young man. He's 20 years old. Most players don't get anywhere near the first team at that age. He's had a huge amount of pressure put onto him, and he thrives on it. He's just doing nutmegs and tricks and flicks, and he turns up. His goal, forget that he was there to finish it, but that team goal, that was a wonderful goal from, a couple of the guys behind me, Russell and Simon, were just eulogising it. Then guy behind me, Simon, he literally commentates throughout the whole game when there's a beautiful move, and that one was just the crescendo. It was an amazing goal, but Dele was there, and to just be in there, I think it's like a genius timing. I don't think we've seen the like at Spurs throughout. It was always looking at Lampard or looking at Gerrard as they popped up, and I don't want to praise him that high, but I think he's got all the capabilities to be as good a goal scorer as those guys. He just pops up. I think he's everything we wanted Jenas to be, that Jenas never was, but he's just got that great skill, that box to box. He loves a tackle. We saw his temperament in the Ghent game and a few times where he gets wound up. But actually, to watch him play, he's a Gaza, the next Gaza, Lampard, etc. He's a superstar in the making. I just hope we can keep hold on to him for the best years of his career. How many goals has he got this season? 10, 11 already?
Yeah, we've got 16 so far and 4 assists. Alan, I want to bring you in, because like I say, you've spoken about the spirit amongst the Tottenham squad itself. Can't get away from his Harry Kane injury, let's be brutally honest. Looking back on the tackle, it doesn't look great, and I think, even best case scenario, we're going to be without him for, looks like at least a couple of weeks. That's obviously speculation at the moment, but looking at the stats at the moment, Eriksen 9 goals, 14 assists, Dele Alli 16 goals, 4 assists, Son 14 goals, 4 assists. Have we got enough in terms of the backups around him to still have a successful season should we lose Kane?
I think so. Let's hang on. Let's not panic yet until we get the result of the scan, because after the result of the scan comes in, there's plenty of time to panic. I think that we've... the thing about Kane, I said this on the blog this evening, just worries me a little bit if he's got a little weakness, because it's the same ankle, isn't it? The one he injured against Sunderland.
Yeah. And
they weren't too strenuous, the tackles that have put him out. And there's a lot of wear and tear on that ankle because we have to keep playing him. So, it wouldn't be Tottenham without something to worry about, even after the day after a 6-0 win. So forgive me for that. I think we've got lots of goals coming from everywhere else. All I'd say is that a lot of the time it's Kane's movement and his assists that are actually helping make those goals. And up until now, the team has been significantly better, even when he's not scoring, because he gives the team a focus and a shape and a balance. He's that good a player. That said, I think that since January, the team seems to be a bit more mature. We've got a new momentum, fresh lease of life. And I just want to say that, we're talking about all the midfielders and the strikers, but the real drive for me is coming from the back with that back three. And they are the first people that I look for now to see if they're playing. They're the ones that I worry about if Alderweireld or Vertonghen goes out with an injury. And Vertonghen in particular is just driving that team forward. He moves into the space that the midfield leave behind them when they move up, and he's really giving the team such energy from the back, and that's key at the moment, I reckon.
Yeah, 82 goals in all competitions so far this season for us. Conceded only 34, giving us a 48 plus goal difference overall. Fingers crossed, like I say, we have got enough in the locker to cope without him if we need to. But fingers crossed, like you just said there, Alan, hopefully the scan won't be as bad as first feared. Let's bring it back to you, Ian. Just going back to the team lineup from Sunday, just looking at Pochettino's selections recently, it seems that he has made his mind up somewhat in terms of Moussa Sissoko and then Kudu, who can't even, like I say, get a place, in the team. Would you say their future's looking quite bleak, or is it too early to tell still?
It depends what Pochettino sees on the training pitch. I know he came out and said that Janssen needed to up his game, and maybe those two have not done enough for them to warrant a place in the starting squad. So, is it too early to tell? Again, maybe they need to show him, what they can offer to the team, and if they don't offer it, then I think we'll see them both be packed off at the end of the year. Because I'm wondering whether the infrequent times we see Sissoko is down to some sort of appearance type thing, and you just imagine that Levy would want to sort of not cash in or not be told to cash in for what we know is quite a hefty price tag for Sissoko. So as for Nkudu, whenever I've seen him, he's shown flashes of what he can deliver, but maybe he doesn't show enough of it on the training pitch. So I think time will tell, but I wouldn't write him off just yet, because I think there's a lot of football to come in our season, says he, hopefully.
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell what's going to happen there. Like I say, the amount of money invested into those guys, and you would arguably say those were the guys that Pochettino signed as opposed to Mitchell, which could maybe explain why Spurs are opting for a director of football rather than leaving Pochettino in charge of the transfers. Who knows? Jace, want to follow up in terms of, or just finish up in terms of the review of Millwall, just by talking about Christian Eriksen. The guy started on the bench, he came on, he scored, he's been involved in 23 goals this season, the most of any Premier League midfielder, and has already beaten his tally of goals for last season, which was 9. Lot has been levelled at Christian Eriksen in terms of, seasons with Spurs. Is he underachieving? Is he overachieving? Does he get the credit he deserves? What do you think, Jace?
I don't think he always gets the credit he deserves, but I think we all know there's still a lot more to come from him. But there's no doubt about it, when we're at our best, we look really good and we're playing well and all the fluidity and movement is there, then Christian Eriksen's always behind that. And I think that, particularly in the new system we've played, that little axis of him, Ali and Kane, that they make sure they stay close together in the opposition half, and that they all know each other's game inside out. And I think, that you're starting to see a real little, an excellent little group of players, if you see what I mean. They all understand, they all read each other's little touches. And I think, the miss for us over the next few weeks with Kane and bringing somebody in will be more the disruption to that little triangle that we have in there. But his goal was just a perfect composed finish, wasn't it? Excellent half volley, cool as anything, not lashing at the ball, just making sure he hits the target. And we know what a good player he is, and it's a question of just trying to get that that little extra 10% on the games where he's perhaps not as influential. But, you know, there's no doubt about it. As I say, we definitely play better with Christian Eriksen in the side than we do without him. You know, and it's not so much about what happened on the pitch. We had lots of build up to it of this was going to be, you know, the game from hell. It's going to be the riot squads and all that involved. I walked back to Seven Sisters with my wife all the way down Millwall one side of the road there, away support, as down the other. There was lots of aggressive faces, there was lots of posturing, there was lots of people trying to behave as if, you know, they're the be-all and end-all. But actually I thought the police handled it brilliantly yesterday, and I think to have 31,000 there yesterday and only 2 people arrested, you know, I think that shows you just what a good job the police did, and also the stewarding in the ground, because, you know, we had the threat of, oh, we're definitely going to, if we go behind, we'll invade the pitch and that, and yet, you know, perhaps a little bit of credit should be given to the stewarding and the policing of that, because that can't have been an easy game, and it was a stressful situation for a lot of them outside, but the police kept it controlled, you know, pretty well overall.
Alan, who was that donut in the East Stand in the box that was trying to take on the whole of the shelf?
That brought the song of the day, didn't it? We can't say the song. It brought the song of the day for me.
Yeah, did you see him? Did you see him? He was literally trying to take on the whole shelf. It was so funny, but not funny in a good way. It was funny in just like, what are you doing?
We're towards the front, so I heard all the noise, and as ever, I couldn't see anything. So
there were people throwing stuff though. It was a bit stupid.
Enjoyed the chant. Yeah, I mean, we see. I remember the old days from Millwall when we went to Millwall when they were in the first division and went there. I think it was around Christmas time, and you go down this little alley and through a bridge, and they've painted "Turn Back or Die" just before you get to the turnstile. But you know, miraculously we did it. I mean, you know, I did that same journey back with Seven Sisters, and it was a bit tense. I'm not sure, to be honest. We just left at a normal time, and we cut up through Bromley Road, which is that cut through from Park Lane to the high road. And when we got to the top, it was blocked, so we turned around to go back the other way, and then it was blocked again. And we were stuck there when, frankly, we wanted to get moving. I go with my 12-year-old granddaughter, you know, and my and my son, and we wanted to get moving. And then when they let us out after about 10 minutes, they moved us straight into the middle of the Millwall fans. Now, I know they've got to get those fans moving at some point, but frankly, I didn't want to be there. Fair play to the Millwall. There wasn't any trouble. People were kicking a football down the road, and that was the main interest. And there wasn't any trouble. But I didn't want to be there. Actually, to be honest, I wanted to be a bit further up the road.
But apart from that, like I say, we've all made it safe and sound back, so everything's good. Guys, we're going to go for a quick break, and then afterwards, we're going to take your questions for tonight's panel. Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As always, we ask you to get your questions into us every week. You can do that by using our Twitter handle @e_Spurs, leaving your question and then ending your tweet in hashtag eSpursPod. It's fair to say, again guys, you've got into us in your numbers. We're going to select a few to go round tonight with time pressing against us. We're going to start with you, Ian. We've got a question here from Kerry Coys at Delicious Deli, or Delicious Dyer, should I say. She says, I'd love Arsenal in the next round of the FA Cup. Who do you want and why?
Yeah, I'd go for Arsenal, because at the end of the day, you know, we're getting to the real business end of the competition, and we're going to have to play them or one of the other big boys in the next in the semis. So why not get Arsenal at Wembley and knock them out like we did, you know, back in '91? So I would settle for them every day of the week. Why not? Would you rather not, Ian, wait for the final to beat them and then they lose Wenger at the end of the season? Or well, as the fans started singing at White Hart Lane on Sunday, I quite like the French chap to stay, to be honest. I'm sure you're not the only one. Next question of tonight, I'm going to go to you, Jay. I've got a question here from Fiona at Lily White Fee, who says, who do you think will be the next youth player to break into the first team regularly, like Harry Winks? It's Keziah Sterling. There's a few actually. So as I see a lot of them training down at Hotspur Way when I'm down there on a Friday. The
the guys coming through is really Sterling is the one that they rate a lot. Obviously Marcus Edwards. So Marcus Edwards being pampered quite a lot, getting ready to come through, and I think those two you'll start seeing in the team next season. They've got a lot of hopes for a lot of players down there, but I think those two are the next two to really come through, and hopefully we've seen Edwards in a little cameo role in, I think it was the Gillingham game, and Sterling, I think Poch has actually said this week that he's going to get him involved in a lot of games. Just be really brief, but on Friday, it was the first time I've seen it, they had a highlights reel of all of the recent academy games, going from under 9 all the way up to the under 23s in the Premier League 2. And every game there was a Shishawa. Also looks amazing. He's number 7. I think he's in the under 18s. He looks absolute quality. So we'll see if he comes through. But again, that's just like some highlight reel, and I'm sure there's more learned people that know about them. But I think it's definitely from the team over there. It's Sterling and Edwards.
Promising hopes. No, Pochettino has said he will definitely, because he is starting to be trained with the first team next season, so that tells you how much he's gone up. And
we've got Chelsea in the Youth Cup or something tomorrow at White Hart Lane as well.
Yeah, I think there's still tickets available for that.
Yeah, I think they're only about £3 or something for a ticket, or £5 or something like that.
Yeah, so like I say, this podcast might go out too late to advertise that. It may very well be on the day this podcast does go out. But if you can get down there, by all means, go and support the kids. It will be great. Next question tonight, we're going to go to you, Alan. We've got Zoe Pearson at Z_Pearson, THFC, who says, is Winks the natural successor to Dembele? That's a good question.
They tend to cover similar ground. I think they're very different players. Winks hasn't got the strength of Dembele, and I don't think he ever will. But then again, I can't remember a player who has Dembele's strength. And I mean, I'm going way back. I can't remember a player who is more difficult to knock off the ball than Dembele is. I think Pochettino can see the qualities of the two players, and he's certainly, as we were saying a bit earlier, working Winks into that team, getting busy, getting playing the ball forward. Winks likes to pass it, whereas Dembele is more of a runner with the ball. And I think that they can complement each other very, very, very well. They could play alongside each other even.
Yeah, like I say, he definitely, like I said at the moment, is biding his time, Harry Winks. Like we said earlier in the podcast, giving him, not overloading him with game time, just bringing him in gently. And like I say, there's definitely such a special player in there. Really, really excited for seeing his progress in a Spurs shirt. We're going to come back round and go to you, Ian. Next question of the season comes from Jay at my name Jay. He says, how happy were you for Janssen? I couldn't stop smiling for about an hour, personally. I think we all were. It got the biggest shout, didn't it, in terms of the crowd at White Hart Lane. It was the biggest shout of the day.
Yeah, I think it was. I think there was a mixture of being pleased and slightly relieved that, he'd finally managed to net from open play. And he had another good chance just after that, where, if he heads it anywhere apart from, down at the keeper, he gets a second one. But, he did get quite a good little response from the crowd. Although I thought he scores when he wants chant was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It could have been taken the other way. But, fair play. I was really chuffed for the boy.
And next we'll come back round to you, Jason. We've got really good thing here. Paul Astle, who says, observation, after long absences for Toby, Jan, Rose, Dembele, Lamela, Kane, we're still second and in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Janssen and Son will do okay. He seems to be confident. What do you think, Jace?
I think I've said something similar all season. We have been without 9 players, and I've kept hearing about our lack of depth, and now there we are, as you say, in second place and in the semi-finals of the Cup. The lack of depth has definitely affected us within the European games this year. But, we have covered overall for the injuries pretty well. And I think the biggest compliment I'd take is that when I listen to supporters of other clubs talking about us, that's all they talk about. They say, how will you cope without Kane? They can't find anything wrong with our team to start with. It's constantly put on you that your weakness is your injuries, and yet we've been without 9 players. I think, you know, the questioner's dead right. It's time we did understand that we have got some decent depth. Yeah, there's certain players, like any club, there's players. What would Chelsea be like without Hazard? You know, they definitely miss him, wouldn't they? Arsenal aren't the same when Sanchez isn't there. So it's time we realise that the squad is a lot better than we perhaps have given it credit for, albeit, you know, it will be tested to the maximum over the next few weeks.
Back round, we're going to you now, Jay. We've got Peli-Ali at Jenayed Lass, who says, can we still maintain our push for second despite missing Kane? Last time we did slow down considerably.
Well, I think, yes, we can. Absolutely. I think Kane is a massive loss, but with the games we've got coming up, on paper, they are very winnable games. Now, on paper and Spurs don't normally go together. So Southampton were the team that last beat us at the Lane. So we've got a big job against them. I've got a lot of respect for Southampton. I think Daniel Levy and the board obviously have too, by taking Pochettino, Wanyama, Alderweireld, etc. And have a great bunch of players who always overperform, but without Van Dijk, who is their best player, we did sort of do them quite easily over at Southampton over Christmas. I think that will give us a good platform and see where we are. I think Son will play rather than Janssen, but I think if we just keep that formation and keep doing the things that we're doing with the three at the back, I agree. I think it was Alan said earlier, Alderweireld and Vertonghen are really the key players for us. I'd be more worried if Toby was out than Harry, actually. I think Toby's that key. So we'll see with Southampton. I think we've got some games coming up after that. But the way Harry walked off, I hurt my ankle and I couldn't have walked off it like he did. So let's see. Hopefully it's just all precautionary with the boot and he'll be back. We've got the international break in the way. But I think we can maintain our push for second. I think we can go for the semi-final. And hopefully he comes back towards the end when we really need him for the Arsenal and Man U games.
Well, I'd say I completely agree with you on that. Fingers crossed, like I say, it won't be too bad, but we're all kept in the waiting game at the moment, waiting to hear. Going to come to you next, Alan. We've got a question here from KRTHFC at Kartik99, who says, reports in the past week have been linking us with Barkley and Bruma of Galatasaray. What do you make of these guys, and would they be a good fit?
Well, I can be honest with you. The guy Galatasaray, I've never heard of. This is honest blogging, honest writing. No idea who he is. I think when Sissoko came to the club, people said, well, you know, he's not going to fit in. He hasn't got the attitude. I said, well, you know, let's wait and see what Pochettino can do with him, because he's transformed players. The same applies for Barkley. Barkley is a fantastic talent. His final ball, his choice of passes doesn't quite match the rest of his game, and I think Pochettino can do a lot of good with his game, and I think it will give us something that we don't quite have. Some extra creativity, certainly depth of the squad. You know, that said, you know, Sissoko hasn't really responded. Sissoko seems to want to play the game at his own pace and doesn't seem to want to change. And we need to do some due diligence on Barkley to see how much he is willing to change and how much he's willing to play at a higher pace that Pochettino is going to demand of him.
Yeah. I say it's very, very tough at the moment to just kind of judge the situation on Mr. Sissoko. I know we've just discussed about it at length on this podcast. I mean, clearly he was a Pochettino signing. You know, whether we think it's a last-minute dash at the time, it was clearly a player that he wanted. Levy backed him. Whether he's got a future at Spurs is another question. We remain to be seen. We've got a final question of tonight, lads. It's more of an open question. This is from I Know Alan Gilzine, at I Know Alan Gilzine. He asked this question: can we avoid Arsenal's post-Highbury fate? Are Arsenal us in 10 to 12 years? Like them, we have been sold the idea that we have to move to a bigger ground to compete at home in Europe. Will we be hounding out Pochettino in 10 years? What do you guys make of that question? Could you see us treating a manager like that? I mean, I've got to be able to say that. I think if Pochettino delivered the title at Spurs, I'd want to kiss the bloke's feet. I can't imagine there'd be protest in terms of getting the manager out. But what do you guys make of that? Let's come to you first, Jason, on this one.
I think we'll be playing Real Madrid for our 5th Champions League in 10 years' time.
That's a confident-looking answer. That's interesting. We'll leave that
I
one
think
there.
we'll have been World Club champions 3 times by then, and Pochettino will have a better bust up than built. It'll be Maurizio Pochettino way, outside the stadium. So no, I mean it's a good question. God, we'd have to have a hell of a crystal ball for that, wouldn't we? Let's hope we're not hounding Pochettino out, but I think part of that is I'd hope that Pochettino wouldn't need to be hounded out if it had started to go flat by then. So
it is an interesting one. Any of you other guys got a...
So when they were building the Emirates, it was, Chelsea were coming through with Abramovich, but Man City weren't on the table. And I think what Arsenal fans need to understand is no matter what financial planning you put in place, you can't ever accommodate for a sheikh to come in with oil billions and transform a mid-table club like Man City into what they are. So Arsenal really were competing with Chelsea and Man United prior to the Emirates, and they still are. And there's just clubs like us that have come in. There's no one else that can really win the league. So I think they should be careful what they wish for. And I think Spurs fans saying we want you to stay, it's a bit dangerous, because whatever happens, even last season, he still managed to finish above us. I can't wait for him to go. It'd be the best thing that ever happened to Arsenal, for Spurs, I mean, because they will go into free fall. They spend a lot of money. They buy things like Sanchez, players like Sanchez and Ozil. It's 90 million quid across 2 players. They have no idea. They do not realise how lucky they are on what they've had. We've looked over with no envy, pity, weird stuff, but they are Champions League 20 years in a row. They are top 4 easily every season. And for the first season, they're not going to get it. Oh my God, they should never. Just look next door and see what we've had to put up with in that 20 years. And to see them like this, it's just like you spoiled brats. You're absolute spoiled brats, and I hope they get exactly what's coming to them, and they get an absolute fiasco, and they go into free fall. Because I think Wenger, he might not be a Pochettino, etc., but he is that club, and they'd have to change everything, just like Ferguson was at Man U. And look at them, we're second, Man U is still 6th with all the money that they've spent because Ferguson went. It's a big thing, a big legacy. They need to try and keep that legacy as long as possible.
Let's turn our attention, guys, to the Southampton game. Can I come to you first, Alan? I mean, your book has probably touched upon the connection between the fans and the players at the moment is formidable. I mean, our home record at the moment, like I said, I think I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're now unbeaten at White Hart Lane since early May. That's played 18, 16-1, drawn 2. I mean, the record at the moment is absolutely, fortress-like at Tottenham. Can we go the whole season unbeaten?
I don't see why not. It's all down to the way that the team are playing. I think there is a renewed sense of purpose and momentum about the team. We've watched their growing pains. We've watched them grow up. They haven't had the benefit of experienced players coming in to influence the team and to give them that winning mentality. They've had to learn it themselves, and sometimes that's been painful. I like to think that they've learned the lessons from Europe. Firstly, the failures in the Champions League, and secondly, Dele Alli getting sent off against Ghent. But also, the fact of the matter is, against Ghent, we were completely on top, and made sure that even with 10 men, we were still on top. And I think that they're taking that forward. And I think that they are lifted and buoyed by the crowd. They must have been yesterday. They heard all that noise from the Millwall, and then from Tottenham was deafening. The whole ground was getting behind them. They've got to feel 10 feet tall when they hear that. And to be fair to the players, they always reference that in some way. So Southampton are a good team. They're well organised. They've compared with the away leg, of course, they've got Gabbiadini now, so we're going to have to keep an eye on him. They've got someone who can score. But to me, it's all down to Tottenham and the Tottenham attitude. The last few home games, we've gone out, got on top early, won the game before half-time. Just bring them all on. That's my attitude. Bring them all on.
Loving the attitude. Ian, going to come to you next. Southampton, the last team to beat us at White Hart Lane. Going to be a tough game, isn't it? They've got some good players in there, Southampton.
Got some very good players, and we had to be on our game when we played them down at St Mary's early on in the season. When we fought back to win the game, and they are a good little outfit. I think we will struggle on Saturday, especially if Kane's not there. We just got to hope that our other sort of front players step up to the mark.
We have indeed. And Jason, coming to you, I mean, Southampton are one of those teams at the moment that really, they can play with that kind of freedom. It doesn't look like they're going to catch maybe the teams above them in terms of the Europa League, and they're not going to get relegated. So for them, it's pretty much a free hit, isn't it?
Yeah, and they will come confident of what happened last year. And I think most people thought that when they lost Van Dijk, their season had go into freefall, and they've actually picked up some decent results. They got to the final without Van Dijk. They were pretty unlucky, let's be fair about it, not to have won that final with the decisions that went against them on the day. And they won at Watford a couple of weeks ago with Gabbiadini obviously coming in and scoring goals for them. So, I think we're at that stage now where we can't afford too many slip-ups, and I expect us to win the game, maybe 2-0, something like that.
Jay, we got distracted by the FA Cup draw there, so just to give guys out there, we watched the FA Cup draw all live there together. It is Chelsea, typically going to be a hard game, but again, a game that, if the Tottenham turn up that we all know and love, there's no reason whatsoever we can't beat them. However, let's go back to Southampton for a second and come to you, Jay. What do you make of the test?
The Southampton game, I think I sort of said earlier, I think it's they're a good team, they're a strong team, they'll be set up. I think Jay said about Gabbiadini coming in, gives them a bit of an edge up front, which I don't think they had at Christmas. But I still think if we're on our game and we play anywhere near our capability, I think no one can live with us at White Hart Lane at the moment. I think the only team that gave us a massive test there was Liverpool. Liverpool played us off the pitch and we were lucky to get a 1-1. So I think if we play anywhere near the other games that we've played at White Hart Lane this season, I think it could be a 2-1, 3-1 win. I really do fancy it, especially with they haven't got Van Dijk as well. So they haven't got their best player and we haven't got one of ours. Is Rose still out? Is he still going to be out?
Rose, I think, is still out for another 3 to 4 weeks yet. I think he's back early April, so it's going to be a tough one.
I think Davis has been all right though.
He is indeed. I'm going to try, guys, very quickly just to squeeze in some FA Cup reaction. We wasn't too sure if we're going to be staying for the draw, but we are. So let's try and get some feedback very quickly from the guys. We're going to come to you first, Alan. Tottenham versus Chelsea at Wembley. This seems like a familiar occasion in the last couple of years in terms of the FA Cup. Carling Cup, obviously we beat them. What do you make of the draw?
I honestly don't mind who we play. There are different tests for whoever we played. That said, of the three other teams, Chelsea are clearly the better team. They're clearly the best side in England. They've got an ability to just control a game, whether they're attacking, whether they're defending. You just get the sense when you watch teams play them that Chelsea is still in control. But we were the team that beat them at the Lane. We took them on, and above all, we took our chances. I think that if we can take our chances, we can match them. And they might be, of those four teams, they might be a little bit worried about us because we've beaten them. And although it was a game of few chances and we took ours, they were not up for that game. Once they went 2-0 down, they were not up for coming back. I said it earlier in the pod, I can see them in their eyes. And their top players didn't really want to know enough. So if we put them under pressure, let's see what they're made of. Bring them on.
Great attitude there, Alan. And I'm going to come to you next, Ian. What's your reaction to that draw?
Like I think we said earlier on, lads, I'm pretty comfortable with it. Out of the other three teams that were in the competition, they were all tough temes, and and as somebody said earlier on, it's the top four all sort of like playing each other. So we were going to get a tough draw, whoever came out of the hat. So let's get Chelsea out of the way, and then let's thrash Arsenal in the final. Happy days.
I'm liking the positive thinking. And Jay, coming to you, it's a top of the table clash, really. I mean, to be fair, I think Chelsea, out of the teams left in there, would they really have wanted Spurs? I don't think they would have.
Spurs are the team that they got beat earlier in the season when they were playing 4-2-3-1, but since they've gone 3-4-3, 3. Spurs are the only team that's beaten them. So that will be psychological in their mind. The Azpilicueta, where we, pulled off on him and made him look like a weakness, where actually everyone else sees him as their biggest strength. So, they wouldn't want to have got us at all. But I don't think really we wanted to do them. But I think one of the guys said earlier when we were chatting that we can stop them doing the double. So yeah, bring it on. Don't want them doing the double. That'll be horrific.
And final thoughts. We're going to come to you, Jason.
What a sooner have Millwall again. Despite no one likes them, can't we have Millwall again? I think Chelsea I think they're the hardest side to beat, let's be fair about it, and they're a side that we have to get our minds and brains properly switched on for. Absolutely no chance of making mistakes, but we've done it once before and there's no reason why we can't do it again.
Fingers crossed, like I say. That game itself to be played on either the 22nd or 23rd of April. What a game to look forward to. Another London derby. Guys, all that remains for me to say is, Jace, thank you as always for tonight. Jason, should I say thank you as always?
No problem, mate.
Ian, thanks so much for this evening.
You're welcome, Rick.
Been a great show. Jay, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me.
Been a pleasure. And finally, Alan, thank you for coming on.
Pleasure and a privilege. Thanks very much for having us on.
Lovely. Alan, and just before we let you go, do you just want to give one final plug of that book, just in case anyone wants to try and get their hands on it?
People's History of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club by Martin Cloak and Alan Fisher. It's published by Pitch Publishing, available Amazon, all other good bookshops, on Kindle. It is a history of support and supporters. It's the first book of its kind in the country, which befits some of the independence and pioneering themes that we talked about in the book. A lot of people have liked it. A lot of people have said we've got the history right, and above all, we've got the spirit right, the spirit of the fans, and that's the biggest compliment.
Fantastic book, guys. Get your hands on it, like I say. Guys, as always, thank you so much for this week, and as always, come on, you Spurs!
When it comes to